Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen, ex-girlfriend, demands the engagement ring I never gave her, gets arrested. After that, am I the jerk for not putting my boyfriend's name on my house that my grandmother left me? And after that, am I the jerk for telling my niece why I kept a distance from her and her parents growing up? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get an engagement ring. Wouldn't be the first time you took me for granted, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen, ex-girlfriend, demands the engagement ring I never gave her, gets arrested. A while back, I was dating this girl for roughly 2 years. I thought things were going great, but apparently she was just dating me because she liked to tell people she was in a relationship. No, that's how it went with her. The way she described me was too immature, decent at loving, and honestly not worth the rest of her life. Exact words she said to a friend of hers after we broke up. Anywho, I'm getting ahead of myself. I went out and bought a ring, had this entire thing planned out to propose to her. However, she was suddenly not available for several weeks in a row. Well, my fears rang true as she suddenly showed up at my place one day. She acted like everything was normal as we talked, and she was grabbing everything that was hers. About halfway through, I just kind of looked at her and said, "Don't forget your hairdryer. It would be awkward to have to come back over after you dump me." This sparked a long and awkward conversation where she was fake crying. I had realized right then and there that I was an idiot. The way she acted, the way she spoke, and the way she treated me just screamed that she did not care. I was devastated, but seeing her made me angry. I had realized that she was lying to me this entire time. About a month later, a friend of hers called me up, asked if she could come over to talk. I asked why. She said that my ex upset her and she wanted to tell me some things. My mind goes to horrifying things, like she needs to warn me I need to see a doctor or things like that. Well, her friend came over and we chatted for a while. See, her friend was beyond upset. She said their friendship was over. So her way to get back at her friend was to hook up with her ex-boyfriend. Me being in my mental state, I said yes. More like I said, sure, yeah, we can do that if you really want to. So she ends up staying over for a few days as we get to talking about my ex. I tell her about the ring and she had the best idea to get back at my ex. Let's lay down together and post a pic of ourselves with the ring in between us. Yeah, I thought it was a terrible idea, but I wanted my ex to feel like crap, so, well, there you go. Not even 2 hours later, my ex was at the door. We posted the picture at like 11 a.m. and she was at my place at 12:40 something. Right off the bat, she tried to act like breaking up with me was a mistake. She said that I was the best boyfriend she ever had and she was getting scared with how serious things were getting. She said she made a terrible mistake in breaking up with me. Well, her friend immediately goes into a rant about my ex saying that she was manipulative and that neither of us would believe this sob story she was giving. I gotta say, I'm very glad her friend was there because my stupid self was believing my ex. I reminded her of how she treated me when she broke up and that she should go home. She was wasting her time. Well, now she brought up the ring. She said she owned it under the law, said that rings are gifts that I cannot take back. In unison, me and her friend said that I never gave it to her. We both looked at each other and laughed a bit as the absurdity of the situation was getting outrageous. She said she was owed that ring and that she was not leaving without it. At about this time, a police officer came up the stairs wanting to know what the trouble was. I guess we made enough noise that neighbors called the police. The female officer asked what the situation was. Everyone tried to talk at once and the officer shut us down, pointed to my ex and asked her what the problem was. She said she was trying to pick up her stuff after we broke up. She asked me if it were true. I explained the situation, how my ex broke up with me before I had the chance to propose and that she was never given the ring. Throughout the conversation, 2 more officers showed up, one a supervisor. The whole story was explained like 4 times. At one point, my ex said that the money from the ring will let her pay off her car. Ever see a moment when someone says something so outrageous that everyone looks at them in utter disgust? I responded by saying that the ring isn't expensive. It was bought used off of a website, and I reminded her that I'm an IT tech, so this wasn't a ring that was $10,000 to $12,000, more like $1,000 to $1,500. The anger and rage that came over her face was immediately apparent to everyone. She stepped forward and punched me in the chest and kicked at me before being tackled to the ground by the female officer. The supervisor on scene told us to go inside while they got her under control. We did, and about 10 minutes later they came back. They wanted my statement. I told them I didn't want to press charges against her, but they said, yeah, it doesn't work like that. We saw it, so it's being processed. She ended up getting a misdemeanor offense for it. Am I the jerk for not putting my boyfriend's name on my house that my grandmother left me? I really thought this was normal, but so many people are telling me I'm a jerk for not doing it, so it's starting to mess with my head, to be honest. I recently received a house. My grandmother passed and left her 2 houses to my sister and I. We sat down and between the 2 of us decided that she would have the bigger house as she's married and has 2 kids and another on the way, while I would move into the smaller 2-bedroom house. My sister's husband has been added to the title of her house as he helped her pay the taxes on it. I was able to pay the tax on mine by myself as it was cheaper due to being smaller. Because my boyfriend of 3 years didn't contribute financially towards it, I didn't think to put him on the title. We had a housewarming party last weekend, and his parents came up to me towards the end of the night and were going on about how lucky boyfriend and I were to be able to live somewhere like this rent-free, and it gives us such a head start in life, and that they were very appreciative that I'd given half the house to my boyfriend. I corrected them that I hadn't, and he wasn't on the title, but was welcome to live with me and not pay rent, so that he had more money to put towards his studies. We are both master's students. They immediately became very judgmental, saying that I was being unfair not putting his name on the title, and that clearly I didn't expect the relationship to last, I didn't trust him, etc. I said they were being unfair, and he wasn't entitled to half of my family's house, and then walked away. Now numerous members of his family have messaged me and him, calling me names and saying I don't trust him and telling him to watch out because clearly I don't love him, etc. Am I the jerk here? I've gotten a bunch of messages asking me what my boyfriend thinks, so I'll put my response here. I brought it up with him on Monday, and he said that he feels like it's a sign I don't trust him. I said that I wouldn't add a man to the title unless we were married and he was paying for half of the rates and stuff. He said that he feels like I'm blackmailing him into getting married. I said I wasn't. I just wouldn't want to make a huge commitment like giving him half my house without some commitment from him, and he said to just drop it because we're never going to agree, so let's just leave it so we don't argue. Not the jerk. And your boyfriend's family are really overstepping here. This is none of their business, and it's very crass that they feel entitled to comment. He didn't contribute at all. He isn't your spouse. You aren't obligated to add his name to the title. The fact that he didn't defend her from them is a big sign. Even if he disagreed with them, and he's wrong in this case, he needs to be able to step up and tell them to mind their own business. I think OP should heavily consider a prenup. If people overreact to that, then maybe you shouldn't get married yet. Notice, it's not your family, OP. You're not married to him. Even if you were, he should be able to respect whether you add him or not, as it's an inheritance. Please do yourself a favor, and do not under any circumstances add this dude to your house, married or not. Or if you get married, at least don't add him initially. Don't get into a state where you're the one who has half a house to lose should he decide all of a sudden he wants to be married and then run. Please don't do this to yourself. Considering finances are a big deal and a big source of potential arguments here, please sit down as adults and talk through what finances will mean once he moves in rent-free, who pays bills, etc. Last thing you'd want is for him breaking stuff and having you pay because it's your home and he shouldn't have to help pay taxes and other maintenance things for a home he doesn't own. In fact, please talk this out ASAP. Set clear boundaries on who will be responsible for what. Make a fair since you're already pretty much covering rent. Will he buy the food, pay for bills, etc.? Don't let this blessing from your grandma break you up. But if this needs to happen, better it be now before your finances are entangled. You're the jerk. Gotta love Reddit. We've seen this same story time and time again, and anytime the house belongs to the dude and the girlfriend wants her name added onto it, everyone cheers her on and tells her to leave him. Red flag, you deserve so much better, etc. Anytime it's her house and the boyfriend wants his name added to it, people rant about what a bad person he is. Look, if you add a boyfriend or girlfriend's name to your house, you're an idiot. But at least say it both ways. The hypocrisy that you find here on Reddit never ceases to amaze me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Do yourself a huge favor and dump this dude ASAP. Am I the jerk for telling my niece why I kept a distance from her and her parents growing up? I, 42 male, have a niece, Lily, who's 18. Lily is the result of an affair my ex-fiancé had with my brother while we were still together. I was led to believe Lily was mine throughout the entire pregnancy and almost signed her birth certificate before my ex confessed out of guilt that Lily was probably my brother's. We did a DNA test and Lily wasn't mine. During my teens, I got into an accident which left me infertile. The doctor said my chances of fathering a kid were slim to non-existent, so you can imagine how crushed I felt when I discovered that not only I'm not going to be a father, but I was also betrayed by two people I loved. It's been years since then, and I did well for myself. I'm the first in my family to attend university, and I landed a high-paying job right after graduation. I own my own business, invest in property, and since I'm both single and childless, I can spend my income however I please. My ex ended up marrying my brother, and I'm somewhat cordial towards them, but I can't bring myself to fully forgive them for what they did. And although I know Lily is blameless, whenever I see her, I'm constantly reminded of how I was once overjoyed with holding her in the hospital thinking she was mine, so I can't bear to look at her for too long. I didn't visit her growing up, didn't take her on fun trips or give her lavish gifts like I did for the rest of my nieces and nephews. I wasn't mean or hateful to her, but I will admit I kept my distance. When my oldest nephew turned 18, I decided that I will pay for his college education since I could afford it while his parents couldn't. I even rented him one of my apartments for cheap so he wouldn't have to worry about money and could focus on getting his education. Since then, I did the same thing for two of my other nieces. Last week, Lily approached me during a family event and inquired if I could pay for her education. I told her no. She then called me a jerk and asked why I was so distant towards her and her parents, to the point where I couldn't even do her the same favor I did for the rest of her cousins. I told her that her parents have enough money to afford her education and asked her how she could possibly expect me to be okay with watching my ex and brother, who had an affair behind my back, play happy family in front of me. After that, Lily got quiet for the rest of the event and left early. I later got a call from my ex, yelling at me for ruining her family. Apparently, she and my brother didn't bother telling Lily about what they did to me all those years ago, and now that she knows, she's so angry at them, and she decided to go live with her boyfriend's family. I'm starting to feel guilty that I told her the truth since it affected her more than I thought it would, but at the same time, she has grown enough to know the truth, and I don't think I could have lied to her face even if I wanted to. Am I the jerk? Edit. For those asking why it was so hard for me to look at Lily all those years, here's a couple of reasons to sum it up. 1. My ex and I began dating when we were 13 and broke up when we were 24, so 11 years. She knew about my infertility issues and how much I wanted to be a dad and still led me on to believe the baby was mine. 2. I named Lily when she was born since I always liked the name and wanted to name my daughter that. My ex didn't change her name even after it was discovered she's not mine. 3. My brother and I look alike. Lily looks like my brother, and as a result, she also looks a lot like me. If my ex didn't tell me back then I wasn't her father, I wouldn't have suspected a thing. 4. Having to witness a kid that looks like me, has the name I chose, and was being raised by the woman I loved for so long, all the while being infertile, really made it impossible for me to be an active part of Lily's life like I was for her cousins. Not out of resentment for her, but for the sake of my mental health. I decided to listen to some of your advice and text Lily. I asked if she would like to meet up and have a conversation about all that went on, since like you said, she does deserve some answers. She hasn't replied yet. Not the jerk. As someone in a family who likes to keep secrets, thank you for telling her the truth. She deserved to know it, and she will appreciate it in the long run. It also gave her understanding on why her uncle treated her so differently, which clearly has plagued her. I'm sure her parents are upset to be caught in their lies for the second time in nearly 2 decades, but they are their lies. They are responsible for their lies and the consequences of them. They should have told their own daughter first. Someone was going to tell her eventually, inside or outside the family. Thing is, both parents are horrible people. They betrayed OP, repeatedly told lies to OP and everyone else to hide their relationship. They almost let OP believe he was the father. So the chances of them being honest, moral, good people and doing the right thing with their own daughter, like telling her the truth about how they got together, was always going to be unlikely. Liars gonna lie. Not the jerk. Your ex and brother should have talked to her. Sounds like maybe she's asked them why you were distant with them and never got a clear answer. But she did now. Did her parents know she was coming to you and asking you to pay for her education? If so, what did they expect? For you to jump and gladly do it? They are the jerks. What do you think? Was OP the jerk for telling his niece the truth or not? Please let us know. No, but her parents are super jerks. Am I the jerk for throwing them out of a house that we own? My wife and I bought a 4-bedroom house in Pennsylvania that my son lives in. Our son went to college in Pennsylvania and wanted to stay in the area, so we bought the house as a second home. We live in New Jersey and commute into Manhattan for work. We figured that he would have a place to live and we could visit every so often and spend some quality time together. We pay the taxes and services and maintenance on the house. Our son pays for his groceries and the house utilities. All was going well for a few years. Our son meets a girl and they get serious. We meet her and she seems nice enough. They announce their engagement and she moves into the house with our son. Now for the problem, the wedding. We hold a little get-to-know-you barbecue at the Pennsylvania house. My son and daughter are there, as are our son's fiance and her parents and sisters. We all seem to be getting along well. My wife, daughter, and the fiance go into the house along with her mother and sisters and my son. A few minutes later, my wife and daughter come out and are really upset. They come over and tell me we are leaving and driving back to New Jersey. I try to figure out what happened. Once we get back to New Jersey and they calm down, they tell me that our son and his fiance, along with her family, don't want us at the wedding. According to what I was told, we are not their kind of people. I was livid. I called my son and asked him what on earth this was about. He tells me that her family feel that we are not good enough and will embarrass them at a family wedding, and that we are all uninvited from the wedding. I let a week go by to calm myself down and drive back to the Pennsylvania house. The new future in-laws are in the house along with the fiance. It appears that they all moved into the house. They ask me why I'm there. I tell them that since we aren't invited to the wedding, I was coming over to talk to my son. They tell me to leave their house. I lost it and told them that they had 30 days to get out. Tell my son I'm selling the house and he could find somewhere else to live with all of you. I go to a realtor in town and list the house for sale. They call my son at work and tell him what I said. Apparently, they thought that he owned the house. He calls me and asks why I'm selling his house. I tell him I paid for it along with the taxes on it and it's mine. He was living there rent-free, but since he doesn't want us in his new life, he has to get out. I tell him the same as I told his future in-laws. They have 30 days to get out, then I'll get a lawyer and get them evicted. Am I the jerk for taking a hard stance on this? He is my son, but the in-laws seem to take over and we no longer count. Not the jerk. You don't need a lawyer in 30 days. You need one now. I'm not familiar with Pennsylvania tenant laws, etc., but you need to follow everything by the book so they can't contest anything. I would also go back and videotape with timestamp the entire property inside and out so they can be held accountable for any damage done. Not the jerk. Rock on, man. He was wrong, and there's no amount of excuses or words to convince otherwise. It overall seems toxic, and there's no reason why he should allow anyone to exclude his family. I could understand if maybe you haven't been supportive or there were issues, but based on what I read, it baffles me why he would even do this. Don't let in. Keep going forward. If this is the life he wants, they can find another house together, not use you for an easy life. Always read the contract. I work on a military vehicle carrier. Ever seen those ships that look like giant floating shoeboxes? That's what I work on. They have a tiny living area, a tinier bridge, and a decent-sized engine room. In the industry, we call them row-rows, roll on, roll off, as they don't crane cargo on and off. They actually have a massive stern ramp to allow cargo to drive on and off itself. All of these flaws I mentioned were designed to give as much space to the massive cargo holds, and they are massive. We were in a shipyard in North Charleston, South Carolina for repairs a few years back. One of the many jobs we contracted to have done was the chipping and painting of the interior cargo holds. Now again, these cargo holds were massive. Imagine 2 football fields laid end to end with an overhead of 12 feet. Now imagine 5 decks, floors of that. The ship is big. To tie down all of the vehicle cargo, we have chain boxes throughout the holds, which are 4x4x3 aluminum boxes. These hold all of the ship's lashing gear and are strategically located all over the ship's cargo holds. Unfortunately for me, the shipyard workers decided these made great trash cans. There was always one within tossing distance, and best of all, it hid their garbage. Why toss it onto the deck when there was a chain box nearby? After 2 weeks of nagging the contractors to stop tossing their trash into the bins, I fumed to the captain next door. He suggested I read the contract we had with his painting company. I was not smart enough to see what he wanted me to do, so he dumbed it down for me. So-and-so coatings were there to provide me with transportation, just an electric golf cart, up and down all 6 decks to ensure the work is being done and levels of cleanliness are being maintained. I even had a driver, whom I will call Radar, like the dude from MASH, the TV show. I showed him the contract. All rubbish brought aboard by contractors was to be disposed of by them. They naively assumed this meant those garbage cans we ignore for the chain boxes. And so I did just that. I made Radar stop at every chain box and empty them out, and there were about 90 to 100 of them. The first 2 to 3 days, he tried to claim that the garbage, almost all Monster drinks, coffee cups, water bottles, and cigarette packs, was there already, but he cleaned them up as a token of goodwill. Naturally, they were full the next day as well, and the day after that, and the day after that. After about 10 days of this, Radar had enough. He tried to complain to his boss about the workers tossing their trash into the chain boxes, and the solution was to let the workers toss their crap in the chain boxes. We'll clean it up at the end. Come to the end of the job, and surprise, surprise, Radar tried to drive me right to the painting job, right past the garbage-strewn chain boxes. Imagine his surprise when he realized I had not forgotten about the rubbish. As a matter of fact, I told Radar I wanted to see the chain boxes before anything else. When I realized they were still full of rubbish, I told Radar, "Empty that crap, and don't call me until it's done." So-and-so coatings were not happy about this, and any question they asked about the quality of paintwork was shot down by me. As they wanted to get paid, the owner of the company joined Radar and one other guy, and they spent all afternoon emptying the rubbish from 100 chain boxes. I made it clear no painting approval would be considered until all rubbish was removed, period. So Radar and the big box spent a half day emptying the chain boxes of the trash his workers had filled. Why Big Boss? Apparently, all of his workers had some big money, US Navy rush job to attend to, and he wasn't getting paid until I was happy. And I was not happy. At least not until Big Boss was very unhappy. I got my good paint job and my clean chain boxes. Am I the jerk for preventing my daughter from getting a new phone? Forgive me if I'm heated in this post, but this situation makes me extremely angry. A few months ago, my daughter smashed her iPhone for a social media post. In the post, she said, "It's okay, my parents will buy me a new one." The thing is, I definitely would have bought her a new one that same day and would have never known if it wasn't for the fact that her brother tipped me off and showed me the post. Her father and I were obviously extremely angry. We both came from rough childhoods and worked hard to build a good life for our kids. So to see her take advantage of that was extremely upsetting in a way I can't even describe. Her father and I are divorced, but we sat down and agreed that 1. We are cutting off her allowance, and her purchases now have to come through us. 2. We will never buy her a new phone, but we might consider a flip phone when she goes to college. 3. We will monitor her social media to make sure she's not participating in damaging content. 4. If she gets a job and wants a new phone, she first has to pay us back for the phone she destroyed. 5. We won't buy her a car when she turns 16. As I said, a few months have passed and I still feel the same way, but her dad has softened and he thinks her attitude has changed. He says that we might be too harsh over a teenager's mistake, and we should at least give her an allowance for chores and change "we're never buying you a phone ever" to "going a year without a phone." Personally, I don't care if all kids have one. She has an iPad with social media and a MacBook. She can still message her friends, but I refuse to get her another phone. If she wants one, she can get a part-time job and work for it so she can see how much work goes into getting a phone. But I don't see value in giving more money to a kid who doesn't know the value of money. I'd rather my daughter be unhappy for a few years over a phone than raise another spoiled and out-of-touch jerk for the world. Her dad respects my opinion and agreed he won't give her a phone or allowance. But now my daughter is angry at me and calling me a narcissist and controlling. However, my actions are a direct result of her misbehavior, and I'm not preventing her from getting a phone. She is free to work and buy one at any point. However, I think I might be the jerk because my daughter will be punished for years over one mistake. Am I the jerk here? Fiancé left me due to my health condition. I left her destitute. We dated for 4 years and had what I thought was a great relationship. We were both well-established professionals who both owned homes in the same neighborhood, and both with daughters in the home. Her daughter was 11 and mine was 16 when we met. We had actually planned to get married, build a house, and raise the two together. We planned the house build because she had recently been diagnosed with a neurological disease that would eventually put her in a wheelchair and need something ADA friendly. During the planning stages, I began doing landscape and construction projects on her home to increase the resale value. All in, I invested roughly $30,000 into the home, running everything through my side construction business for tax, permitting, and resale purposes. We had a contract that payment would be made upon the sale of the home. I produced invoices for each and every project, but never pushed for payment because of the prior agreement. Fast forward 6 months, we're looking at property to develop and finalizing drawings on the home when I began feeling ill. I couldn't eat, constantly vomiting and passing blood. I began noticing that my abdomen looked swollen, which was odd because we were both very clean eaters and were in the gym every day. So I went to the doctor and began having tests done. During this time, she began having small cognitive issues, and the stress of her current position was exacerbating her condition. So she took a $20,000 per annum cut in pay along with a lesser position inside the company. After a month or so of different tests and a biopsy, it came back that I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my stomach and would need to begin chemotherapy. So I began chemo and radiation treatments, which made me, expectedly so, extremely ill. She was spending time helping around my place on the weekends and staying over more, to the point that they were both at my home more than theirs. At this point, I suggested that we go ahead and put one of our houses on the market and move in together until the new house was built. I have great supplemental insurance as well as a long-term illness plan, so using that coupled with the sale of one of our houses would push us through comfortably and help ease the financial stress on her. Shortly after this discussion, she became extremely distant. Her daughter wasn't coming down and hanging out with mine anymore. She had excuses for not getting together. She quit driving me to treatments and stopped staying over. She then dropped a bomb, a sentence that will forever be burned into my psyche. I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone this sick in the long term, and I don't think we should see each other any longer. In a text. It broke me, I won't lie. This was the first woman I had ever opened up to and planned a life with since my wife died when my kids were 1 and 3. However, I tried to be mature about it. I forced myself to understand her position and to accept what I could not change. I calmly, the next day, gathered all of her things, packed them neatly, loaded them into my truck, and took them to her house to leave on the back porch while she was at work, in order to avoid any awkward exchanges. Walking around the back and under the porch cover, I sat down in a box and saw her in the back living room, on the couch, hooking up with a guy that she had introduced me to as a lifelong friend. I had dinner and drinks with this man and his girlfriend. We had gone on vacation with them as well. I never spoke on the incident with her and simply sent her a text later explaining that I would leave her things on my side porch to pick up at her convenience. I discovered 8 or 9 months later from his now ex-girlfriend that they had broken up due to him confessing that he had been hooking up with my significant other dating back to about the time we were finishing drawings on the new home. Now I'm mad. Revenge time. At this point, I had finished chemo and radiation for the time being and was feeling healthier. I was going through some much neglected paperwork when I ran across the file that contained $32,000 in unpaid, long overdue invoices, which were promptly sent to my attorney to begin lien proceedings on the home. It turns out that I couldn't have done this a moment too soon because she was set to put her house on the market. Coupled with interest over the course of what was then 19 months overdue, the invoices were hefty. That, along with the agreement of settling them when the house was sold and attorney fees, left her with roughly $10,000 after the sale of the home and selling her current mortgage. She promptly had to back out of the purchase of another home and moved in with her oldest daughter, sister-in-law, and 2 grandkids. She also had to leave her home and begin receiving disability. I ran into her a little over a year ago, and she looked as if she had aged 20 years and was in the wheelchair we had talked about. We chatted cordially, but briefly, and I excused myself and went on with my day. A few days later, her younger daughter called me and spoke of my running into her mom and could we hang out sometime. I gave her a vague answer, thanked her for calling, and again went on with my day. The ex then called me a week or so later and began apologizing for leaving me as she did. Again, cordial but short. I thanked her for calling and hung up. She began texting, and this went on for several weeks until she asked if I could ever see us rekindling what we had, to which I replied, "I can't see myself taking care of someone so sick in the long term. Remember the box on your back porch? Did you think that lifelong friend brought that over to you from my house? Good luck to you. Goodbye." I sometimes feel guilt over this, but not much and not often. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend to get a job or get out? I, 27, have been with my boyfriend, who's also 27, for 8 years, and we've been living together for 6. For college graduation, my dad gifted me a house, paid off as he is very well off. Since graduation, I've started my career and have become very successful and enjoy my work. My boyfriend has not. He did not complete college and has jumped between low-paying jobs for the last 6 to 7 years. This never bothered me. I make enough money to support us both. I pay our utilities and other fees with some help from him. Late last year, my boyfriend lost his job and was still looking for a new one when the lockdown hit. He now claims it is nearly impossible to get a job, which I understand, but have also had other friends in the same town manage to get jobs since the lockdown. All of this would be okay, except my dad lives in a city nearby and will often stop by, with warning. When he does, I do not mind him eating anything he wants out of the refrigerator or using my appliances. I figured he gave me a place to live payment-free, so it's only fair. I also do not care if my boyfriend eats whatever he wants either. Last week, my dad ate food that my boyfriend had purchased. This has happened in the past, but from my perspective, we live rent-free, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It is never special food, normally like regular chicken or something you can get at the market. My boyfriend is normally annoyed, but this time he went ballistic and took my dad's laptop charger out of his bag to get even. By the time my dad figured out his charger was missing, his computer was almost dead and he had an important virtual meeting. Thankfully, he had a spare, but I was livid. I told my boyfriend that he lives rent-free and that if he was going to act that insane about some food when he regularly eats what I buy and turn into a child, then I expected him to get a job and pay rent, or else get out. He chose to get out, but accused me of being a jerk and throwing him out on the street. However, he has a brother and a sister that live nearby, as well as his mother who regularly asks him to come stay with her, which he normally doesn't. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.